welcome back to another episode of Quarantined Coaches. This time we are at UC Santa Barbara with Associate Head Coach Matt Fonteno. How are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Staying quarantined. Are you?
Yeah, we got a lockdown here at the house, and just spending our days with kids doing some schoolwork in the morning, and head outside, let them play a little bit outside, and then I'll mix in some work as well.
Doesn't look like a bad place to be quarantined behind you. It looks nice there, though.
No, yeah, you got clear sunny skies. I think there's probably worse places out there to be stuck at, all day, every day. But yeah, we got some beautiful weather down here.
Well, speaking of quarantine, I wanted to ask you, how is this whole situation, potentially going to affect the recruiting calendar? Like, what does the normal recruiting calendar look like versus what we're expecting to take place?
Yeah, the normal one, to be quite honest, it on March 1st, we were allowed to get back out on the road and have another recruiting period. Prior to that, we were in a quiet period, from the early signing period all the way through the end of February. So, for all of us, we, hit the ground running, I imagine so. And, at least speaking for myself, we hit the ground running and got a chance to get out on the road and recruit a little bit for a couple of weeks before, we all got shut down and, of course, got called back home, for NCAA rules, with the dead period now lasting through the end of May. So, changes to it, I don't know what the future has to hold for it. We are on lockdown, at least from any off, not that there's any baseball to go see, of course, because everything's all shut down, but we can't do visits. We can't do anything off campus or anything like that, at least until, through the end of May, which, of course, may change as well based off of everything that's coming down from the news and whatnot. But, the normal cycle for us would be, we'd be out and about recruiting, going to see high school games, at least this time of year, which is awesome. I really enjoy going to see high school games, working around, of course, our schedule and our practice schedule and all those things for our players. But all the way, to the end of that. And then obviously with all the summer stuff going on, we'd be out and about, all over, at least for us, all over the Western United States, going to chase guys down.
So to get things back on track, do you think that the recruiting calendar may need to look different for an extended period of time, like not just in the short term, but maybe possibly through 2021, 2022?
It may. They actually just came out with an adjustment to this year's recruiting calendar with some extra dead periods in there. The first weekend of regionals, 4th of July, the 4th of July holiday, I think also the national championship weekend. I could be wrong. So there's some extra dead periods in there. There's also a few weeks less in the fall, from the adjustment standpoint. So, they just came out with that. We haven't had a chance to even experience it for the year. So I don't know if that's going to go back and be addressed at all. But again, we can't even get off campus to go recruit, and that's saying if events start up or visits and whatnot until June 1st. As far as, adjustments, like the NCAA coming back and saying, hey, I know we didn't let you guys go recruit for 2.5 months or whatever, so we're going to make these adjustments. I don't know. It's hard to get, I think for the NCAA to make a judgment like that on the fly, I think a lot of things have to be put in place, to be able to make that work. The NCAA obviously has a lot of sports and different things to look over. So it's hard to say if there's going to be an immediate adjustment from there, and I think that for a lot of us as recruiters, we're always, our minds never turn off of that. We're all, even if it's, December, we're maybe get some more time at home. Like, of course we're getting now, because there's no practice going on. Fall practice is over and we're in a quiet period, but you're still around your phone enough and you're paying attention to some of the stuff going on with what guys are doing and whatnot. And you have conversations with players and high school kids and whatnot. So you're always around it. So it's not like, yeah, we can't go see guys play, but you're still in the thick of it with having conversations with coaches and travel ball coaches and players. And so you still know what, everything that's going on, and you still have a good idea of who the good guys are out there. It's not like you're going to sit there and twiddle your thumbs for months on end and then just start from scratch once we do get the green light.
For you guys as a top 15 program, how long do you think you'll be feeling the ripple effects of what took place this year?
It's hard to say. On one hand, it could be a positive, in terms of, you know, you can't ever just forecast it and say, hey, what if? Of course, but the fact of the matter is we had a good year, even though it was only 15 games, and going 13-2 and being in the top 25 and all that stuff. It was, we can look back and say, hey, it was a good year overall with some really good wins, from that standpoint. But there's also the flip side to where, there's some guys that are going to sign professionally that only got a chance to coach for 15 games, and they're going to move on, and you're not going to have a 56 plus game schedule for those guys to really put up some numbers and obviously help the team win some more games and go on to postseason play and all that stuff. But as far as the ripple effect with it, it's a little bit hard to say. It's so astronomical as far as all those seniors getting an additional year of eligibility back, and how many are coming back, and how the draft is going to play into it. It's just, those things getting sandwiched in together is going to, I think, affect everybody across the country.
Let's have a little bit more of an enjoyable time and talk about baseball here.
There you go. There you go.
So basketball is an easy sport to look at the evolution, right? It went from, just a decade ago from it's all about the big guys to now it's all about the shooters. So yeah. What about college baseball? How has that evolved over the past decade or so?
I would first like to say that I'm a born and raised Golden State Warriors fan. I wasn't a bandwagon guy, so I was born and raised in the Bay Area. So I got to see the whole progression of it with Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, and obviously those guys winning numerous championships and all that stuff. But yeah, you're right. It's definitely evolved our sport, and of course it started with Major League Baseball, and I think a little bit more with offensively with the importance of the home run. I mean, that's easily equated to what basketball has done with the 3-pointer and whatnot, and the trickle down effect for how it's affected our sport in college baseball. I think that you see it. There's programs out there that were very traditionally minded to play small ball and very conservative, if you will, and those programs aren't doing that anymore. I think myself, if you had asked me my first couple of years, coaching baseball, I probably would have been on that train, just, born and raised in California, and the way the game traditionally was played out here. But, my mindset has changed and it's evolved, and that's just because of the information that's out there. I think ultimately it always comes back to your personnel and playing to your strengths and, and whatnot. If you have, for one reason or another, a team that isn't equipped to really do a lot of damage from a home run standpoint, then I think it would be foolish for you to sit there and say, well, just try to hit a bunch of fly balls, and then it's just not going to work out. Of course, us as recruiters, we want to make sure and have our hand in getting the right guys out there, and that's part of my job. But I think that overall, you see it a lot. You just I know bats and the baseball's changed and all that. I was watching ESPNU was replaying the '96 national championship game, the LSU Miami game, and
I was going to say, is that the LSU home run game?
Yeah, that was the walk-off by
I can't remember.
The lefty for LSU.
Yeah.
I can't remember his name. That's bad. But like Pat Burrell, I think was a freshman that year. I mean, he hit 480 with I think over 20 home runs, and correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if any individual was hitting 480 at through 15 to 20 games in Division I baseball this year. But I get it. There's different bats and all that stuff. But anyway, I'm kind of getting off point there a little bit. But yeah, the game has changed. The college baseball, the trickle down has, as far as its an influence on the players that you're getting into your program, and then of course how you're developing them and all that.
Wasn't the kid's name that? Because now that's the only thing I can think about. Was it Morris, or am I thinking?
Warren Morris. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I was thinking Morris. I'm like, wait, am I just thinking Jim Morris here, or am I wrong?
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, Warren Morris. Yeah, he was hurt for most of the year, and then ended up having the most important at bat of the season for LSU.
I lived in Miami. I remember that.
Yeah.
So to you, I mean, in your own opinion, do you like the evolution of the game, or would you rather go back a few years?
I like it. Personally, I think it's geared a little more to my mentality, and what I like my players to think in general, the hitters, and most importantly. But I like it, But at the same time, it's a double-edged sword a little bit because, with all the information out there, with the way the game's gone, it can also hurt guys a little bit too because whether it be a JC or high school hitter that comes into your program with this whole ideology of what they think is okay and what they think is they should be doing, when ultimately at the end of the day all you want your hitters to do is have put together good at bats, quality at bats, and that can be defined in a million different ways depending on who you are. But you just sometimes that causes too much swing and miss, sometimes it causes too much chase, and all that stuff, and you don't want to have obviously those things that we want to be able to develop out of hitters, you hope. But I think that it's a little bit of a double-edged sword from that standpoint.
What kind of impact do you think that the evolution of the game is having on the younger generations coming up? Because I know for me personally, for example, I worry about health, like the way the game's going and what's becoming important, and these guys at a younger age trying to do too much maybe before their bodies are ready. So like for you, that would be my example. What do you think the impact is?
Um, yeah, it's interesting. Growing up, and again, I was in college 20 years ago, so I'm not old. But growing up, like travel baseball and whatnot, like wasn't a big thing. There was a couple of groups out there and whatnot, but I mean, it has become so big at all levels, from all ages. I mean, 6, 7, 8 year olds are doing travel baseball, and it's crazy to think that, like, I have a 5-year-old son, and he's not going to play travel baseball when he's 6, 7, 8 years old. I can promise you that he's going to be.
Who's
He's playing
on it?
little league.
Who's he talking to? It's about that time, isn't
Oh,
it?
come on, no. He's. We just, I hooked up the Wii, which is old, but whatever, and he's pumped about playing that. But anyway, yeah. So just getting back to the point there. Yeah, it's there's a little bit of overkill out there, to be quite honest with you. I am a huge proponent of boys and girls out there, playing all kinds of sports and just enjoying themselves, having fun, playing different sports and whatnot, and figuring out what they like and they don't like. The specialization of one sport in particular at a young age, I think I'm not on that one at all. I want my kids to be able to play different sports in different seasons and whatnot. As far as its effect down the road, hey, let's be honest, guys want to throw really hard. And that's the first thing that they write about in an email, or they want to talk about in a recruiting conversation, what their velocity is, and hitters want to hit home runs and all that stuff, which is fine. Sure. Yeah. You want, guys in your program that are throwing hard, and you want guys in your program that are hitting the ball hard, but at the expense of what, and the overuse of it is probably the biggest thing, especially from a pitcher standpoint. I mean, the tournaments and whatnot that we go see, and guys are throwing on a Friday, then coming back and throwing on a Monday. Like I always talk with other coaches that are out there. We're at these events, watching games for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days or whatever. And like, could you imagine, like, if we were doing this to our players? Like, what if we started a guy on a Friday and then came back and started him again on a Monday? We would be chastised.
Right.
Social media, news, everything. Like, not to mention, parents and whatnot. But it's okay in travel baseball for that to happen. I just don't think it's right.
You mentioned big fan of multi-sport when they're younger. I think most people definitely would agree with that. Where I get some disagreement amongst people is, should that stop, and at what point should that stop if you want to be a college baseball player? Like, do you think, okay, well, if you want to be a college baseball player, then you maybe shouldn't be playing football your juniors and senior year? Do you think there's any truth to that, or which side of that are you on?
I'm on the side of keep playing the other sport. I think that if you, as a, myself, like if I saw a guy play and I liked him and I recruited him, and we of course got the commitment out of him, then that's what you like as a player. Yeah. Now part of the process is, hey, you want him to continue to get better because you're recruiting the guy that's going to be on campus when he's a freshman, however long far out that is. But at the same time, I love guys that were high school football players. I haven't ran into too many guys that are basketball players. It's more often the guy that plays football in the fall, and then of course baseball in the spring. But I like the guys to do that. I'm not, of course, not going to name any names for NCAA rules, but like one of our kids that's out there is a verbal commitment, and he called me over the summer and said, "Hey, coach," and he was kind of down and stressed out about it. He's like, "Yeah, I got a tough decision ahead of me, and I just don't know if I should be, play football again in the fall." And I said, "Do you want to play football?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Then go play football. Like, go for it." Like, I don't think that you're gonna just never pick up a baseball or a bat for those few months that you're playing football, but go for it, man. You're going to get in good physical shape. You're going to lift weights and all that stuff. And then you'll have the winter and the early spring to get ready for baseball. That's fine. And then once you move on to college, yeah, it'll be, 12 months of baseball for you, but yeah, go for it, man. That's great.
So in one of our prior conversations, we had talked about outfield, which stuck out to me because nobody talks about outfield anymore, I feel.
Yeah. Yeah.
On Twitter, we see pitching, we see infield drills, we see catching drills. I mean, heck, when we go on to a college baseball website, we see the infield coach or the pitching coach. Where's the outfield coach? Like, what's the deal with that? Is this a lost art, or are we missing something?
It's not a sexy thing. It's really not. It's unfortunate. It's an incredibly undercoached and underdeveloped position. It really is. For a bunch of reasons. I think the first and foremost one being, if you got a catcher, an infielder that isn't good enough defensively but can swing it, the easy thing to do is push him to the outfield and say, just go catch it, which is fine until, of course, that same guy drops a fly ball, misplays a ground ball, overthrows a cutoff man, isn't backing up a base, all those things that go into just being a good outfielder. So those things are really important to me. I was fortunate enough to play the position. I was a center fielder in college, and I loved it out there. I really had a lot of fun playing it. As far as being able to really get after it and all that stuff. But as far as I just think it's really overlooked and just underdeveloped. It's and I get it. Like these head coaches are trying to put together coaching staffs, and you think about you want a good pitching coach, and you want a good hitting coach, and you want to be able to have a good infield guy, and you want to be able to really develop the guys behind the plate. Quite often, the lowest priority is to have a guy that can coach the outfielders. And sometimes guys run into unique situations to where guys have a good background in it, and they could really run with it. But sometimes it's not. Sometimes you got a converted infield guy that is just either reading about it on the fly or just plugging in a machine and or doing fungo fly balls, which is better than nothing. But
yeah, I do want to ask you that question here in a minute. First, what do you mean when you say it's underdeveloped? In what ways is it underdeveloped? What skill?
Well, I just think, what skill? I think throwing first and foremost is a vastly underdeveloped thing, because I think everybody wants to develop arm strength. Like, hey, you really have to be able to throw from the outfield. You really have to be able to do this, that, and the other, from a throwing aspect in the outfield. But really what you have to do in the outfield is you have to be able to play catch. You really have to be able to play catch, because, and I tell this to my outfielders every year, is it's the most, and I'm probably going to piss some evaluators out there, but it's the most overrated tool there is, outfield arm strength. Because you can get a guy who can throw missiles, right? But he's going to miss if he misses the cutoff guy, then you give up a free base. It's outfield assists rarely happen. But if you overthrow a guy, it's just a disaster. As far as the other developed stuff, I mean, there's a lot of nuances that go into it. The positioning of the outfielders, how they break on a ball, the right way to catch a ball, the right way to transfer. There's just a lot of little things that go into what I consider, good outfield play that can get overlooked when you just go catch fly balls out there, right? There's just not much teaching going on.
So what are traits that you would look for in a recruit and think, okay, this kid could make a good outfielder?
Because of how things are set up, let's just talk from a showcase standpoint, because it's, hey, all the outfielders are going to throw from right field, and they're going to make a couple throws to third, a couple throws to home. It is what it is. I think you can see a lot with how they approach the ball and then how they field it and how they exchange it. Much like an infielder. Yeah, the arm strength is fine and all that. Don't get me wrong. It's great if you have a bunch of outfielders that can really throw. But I think you can see the coordination and the hand-eye coordination as far as being able to field it and what their footwork is like and all that stuff. As far as in-game stuff, if I'm there to see an outfielder, from a recruiting standpoint, like I'll watch what he does in between pitches. I'll watch what he does when the pitch is being delivered to the plate. I'll watch, if a ball's put into play. It's easy to see if he's going to go catch a fly ball or something like that, or field a ground ball. But watch what he does when the ball's not hit to him in the outfield and see how his reactions are. You can see if a guy really knows what he's doing out there, if he's moving, if he's being involved on every single play out there or not. Just stuff like that.
When an outfielder comes to you, let's say we have a really good outfielder from the high school level. When they come to you at your level, the college level, what's the biggest adjustment they still need to make?
Probably understanding, if I had to pick one thing, I would say understanding the importance of what you do in batting practice. It needs to be exactly what you will do in a game. I'm a firm believer. There's drills that are important. There's discussions that we have that are extremely important. But for them to stand out there during BP, however you do BP, from program to program. But if you're out there, let's just say you're a center fielder and you have a defensive rotation, say before you go to the cages or whatnot, the importance of you standing out there in your defensive position where you're supposed to be, going through what we call our pre-pitch movement and our ready position. And then when the ball's hit in your general area, going to play it exactly like you would in a game, which would include diving, which would include, if you're getting close to a fence, trying to rob a home run or whatnot, and going full 100% game speed. And then, once that plays over, getting back to your spot and then doing it over again. So, I think a lot of guys take that part of practice for granted. I think it's easy just to be like, I'm just going to shag. I hate the word shag. I think it's terrible. But just passing your time out there until I get to hit again versus, hey, man, I'm going to get better for the next 8, 10, 12 minutes, whatever it is.
That makes sense. You could probably get a hell of a lot more reps there too.
Yep. Yeah.
Real reps. So do you hate like the pitchers going out there then too?
I can't stand it. Absolutely can't stand it. Don't get me started on that one. But yeah, it's, but you know what? I don't let my outfielders in our program, for the most part, our pitchers basically have their own practice and they're basically not involved with that. But for, in my coaching career, I've had, it's been different in each place I've been, but I put it on our outfielders. Like, I don't blame the pitchers for being in the way. I blame our outfielders for letting it be in the way. If I happen to see them and they're out there chit-chatting, or if there's a guy hanging around, I say, why don't you tell him to beat it and go stand on the warning track? Because if you do give up a ball that gets hit out in my area, you want me to catch it, right? And then, of course, they're all going to say, yes, of course, and they're going to leave. So I put the onus on our outfielders instead of even on the pitching staff.
So one of your outfielders during the batting practice breaks hard on a ball, does everything you want him to do, is going to lay out for it, and then injures one of your rotation guys for a month or two. How do you feel about that? Are you happy with your outfielder for the effort?
I'm not. Yeah, I'm happy for his effort. But here's the thing.
Just get him out of the.
I don't want to ever have anybody get hurt, of course. But it's like, we're taking BP and there's guys standing around the outfield and they almost get hit by a batted ball. It's like, you have one job. All you have to do is pay attention to the guy that's hitting down there and don't get hit by the ball that's hit 250, 300 feet. Then, get out of the way. Right. But, we don't want anybody getting hurt, of course. So I'm not condoning that, but guys got to get it working.
How easy is it to turn a toolsy infielder at the high school level into an outfielder? Is it as easy as we're made to believe? Because it seems like what we're doing in college baseball a lot now is let's take the shortstop. That's the best outfielder on the team, and we could turn him into every position possible. So is it really that easy to take a guy like that and put him in the outfield?
It's not easy. I will say last year our starting outfield were all high school shortstops. So to your point, yeah, that's happening. But it's not easy. I think there's a difference between athletic and toolsy. I think the athletic guy has feel and awareness and aptitude. I think sometimes toolsy can be dangerous a little bit because maybe there's foot speed. We've all seen good guys that are fast but can't steal bases. To that point. But yeah, I mean, I think that they first and foremost, it has to start with, of course, yourself instilling the importance in it, but they also got to be all in on it. Like, coach, let's go. Like, hey, I'm not gonna be in the infield anymore. Whatever. I'm gonna go be the best outfielder there is. I think I remember reading a story about Ryan Braun when he transitioned to the outfield. It was like I think it was the off season. He got a call from the Brewers front office, and they said, "Hey, we're thinking about transitioning it to play the outfield." And he was like, he happened to be, I think, out working out at the time, and he was like, "Okay." And then he was a third baseman, yeah. Right. And then he went and got an outfield glove and went straight to the outfield and started taking fly balls. He's like, "Whatever, I'm going to go be an all-star outfielder," which of course he's become.
Let's talk a little bit about hitting real quick. So there's a million rabbit holes to go down these days with hitting. Everybody's got a different idea, and everybody makes it public on Twitter. So what is maybe one or two of the major rabbit holes that you feel like young hitters should be aware of?
I think it's twofold. I think one, just the whole launch angle revolution. And I think more in terms of just understanding what exactly it is. I mean, launch angle is a result. It's a batted ball result. It's not a mechanic. It's not something that you have a tremendous amount of control over because there's a variable of a pitch coming and in a different part of the strike zone and whatnot, and then what you're doing mechanically in your swing and all those things. And I think that's just one thing that's incredibly understood. It's some people think it's this, some people think it's that, people think that that's the end all as far as when it comes to the offense and whatnot. But I think launch angle, mainly because of it's the fact that it's misunderstood and thrown around too lightly. And the other thing I think is being overly mechanical and just like, hey, my at bat didn't go good because of my mechanics. What am I doing wrong mechanically? Why am I not hitting? What mechanic do I need to work on today? When in reality, it's, well, how are you seeing the ball? What's your approach even? Maybe the thought process isn't even right. From there, but mechanics are of course important with all the things we do in sports, but that's not always the answer. It's not always, you can't just blame the mechanic. You can't just, want the quick mechanical fix, because hitting is far more than just that.
And what's the deal with getting the foot down early? It seems like that philosophy is changing also.
Yeah, I think if you looked around 10 years ago or so, that was, a term thrown around, hey, just get your foot down early, so on and so forth, which, I think today, to be quite honest with you, it's almost like a swear word in the hitting offensive community, just because you immediately wrap your head around the fact that, you're taking away so much from the kid and you're being conservative and you're not letting them really go for it. When in reality, if, in the right context, if you're telling a guy, hey, get your foot down early, or earlier, I should say, you're doing nothing more than trying to gain some control for him, for a guy that can clearly handle, getting a good swing off, or, is athletic to get a good swing off, or has the bat speed to be able to still be offensive, all while doing that versus the fact of, if a kid doesn't understand what you're saying, and he hears that term, get your foot down early or earlier, that can turn into, hey, well, I'm just going to get my foot down and freeze and then just try to react to something in the strike zone, versus, hey, I'm going to keep my athleticism, I'm going to keep some rhythm, so on and so forth, from there. So, of course, we never want to, restrict our hitters. We never want to put boundaries on our hitters per se. But at the end of the day, we still have their best interests in mind, and based off of our experience with them and what type of learner they are, what's going to be best for them, or what's going to maximize their potential offensively.
So we have two categories of kids here. We have the quote unquote gamer kid, and then we have the metrics side of things. And everything is so much about the metrics these days and showcase events and things like that. So like, how do you differentiate between the two? And I mean, I'm assuming you want the gamer over the metrics guy. So how do you get that?
I think that's all an evaluation and the homework that you do with their coaches and the coaches they play against or have been around. And sometimes it's their teammates because maybe you have another guy from that particular program who's coming to you or who's already in your program, so you can get a good feel for the type of person they are. But just speaking in terms of analytics and the numbers and the data and all that stuff, very fortunate to have a good system in place here at UC Santa Barbara. We have TrackMan and our pitching staff uses Rapsodo and whatnot. So we have all the numbers, we have all the data and the information out there. And I'm by no means an expert. I've learned a lot, but by no means an expert. And I think that if you dive into the numbers and use analytics a lot, I think on the pitching side, it's a little bit easier and it paints a little bit better picture as far as, hey, what the potential or what you're dealing with from a pitcher standpoint. Of course, they have to have command and some feel and whatnot, be able to throw strikes. But I think it's a little bit easier to read than that. When you're dealing with hitters and it's, hey, my average launch angle is this, or my average exit velo is this. Yeah, that paints I think a much smaller slice of the picture versus, hey, what's going on inside? Of course, on the mound, you need a competitor and a guy that's going to work his rear end off. But you need the same thing on the offensive side as well. But it's putting together good at bats, which is at the end of the day, us as offensive coaches, that's what you want. You want your guys to go in there with a good plan and approach and put together good at bats and lay off a balls or tough pitches and hammer pitches that they can handle or execute and all this, that, and the other. So I think that it's a lot more than just simple numbers and analytics that go into the offensive side of things. I think it's a starting point. There's blast and whatnot that you can use as well, and in offensive development that there's key numbers in there that you can use and rely on. But again, there's a whole picture in there that you need to fill in and a puzzle you need to figure out when it comes to really developing the overall offensive guy. But talk about gamer, yeah, I want the gamer. I want the guy that's and part of the reason they're a gamer is because, quite honest, they've got talent, but they've also got toughness. They've also got competitiveness. They've also got an unbelievable work ethic to where they already feel like this is all I got to do. All I got to do is come up with a big hit. I mean, I've already been through all this other stuff. Then yeah, that's easy, coach. Let's go. I'm in. Let's do it.
Right. Are there any stats at the high school level that you can look at and take any stock in that would help you?
I think for me, a couple of the ones that I look at, I think the walk to strikeout stuff gives you an idea of, maybe their strike zone awareness and whatnot and what their at-bats are like. Yeah, of course, you want guys that are, 400 plus hitters and are leading their league in hitting or whatnot. But, you take a little deeper dive into it, and walk to strikeout stuff's important. The extra base hit stuff can help paint the picture as well, just because, getting guys that, just punch the ball through the 4-6 hole, which is, at times important, but not obviously all day, every day, especially at our level.
I remember you told me that Ken Griffey was your favorite hitter growing up. But I also remember we talked about we probably wouldn't teach kids to bat like him with their elbow in the air. So who are a couple of big leaguers these days on a very general scale or sense that you would say, hey, these are good guys to take a look at how they swing the bat?
Couple guys, just to give an example, a lefty and a righty example would be Christian Yelich and Anthony Rendon. Obviously, both, I suppose it's an easy answer when you're talking about those two guys because of the numbers they put up and whatnot. But at the same time, I think that, you watch the two hit and how they take at bats. Yelich has got the leg kick and whatnot. But there's a ton of control in there. It's not an off balance approach. It's being able to hit balls to different parts of the field. Obviously, there's plenty of power in there. And then with Rendon, I mean, shoot, it's a very minimal movement approach, and but with the tremendous results, of course. And you know, with Rendon, it's that I like that example because he's not a result of Division I baseball, but he played Division I baseball in his path to where he is today.
Definitely two good guys. Coach Fonteno, I really appreciate you doing this with me today, bud.
Of course, Josh, anytime. You stay safe and stay healthy.